Yeah.
All right. So welcome, Boris. Thank you for being a part of Kaleidoscope-Soul Cafe. So basically, I'll just give you a quick rundown. Everything we talk about here, I mean, this gets posted publicly. So if you don't want something to be talked about, that's obviously at your discretion. So any questions that I ask, any topics that come up that you're not comfortable with, you can just say, pass, move on, whatever it is. And that's pretty much it.
Cool.
The questions are, some of them are pretty vague, so you can take any of them however you perceive them.
Love it. We don't have middle names that are born in Russia, but if we did, I'm pretty sure Vague would have been mine.
Vague would have been your middle
Vague
name.
or Birdie. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, vague or verbose, something with a V. What was I gonna say? Is cursing allowed?
Yes,
no?
You can curse.
Okay,
Go at
cool.
it. I know you get pretty passionate when you talk about stuff. So.
Well, yeah, it's like I want to know whether I can like go to the place that I go to when I get not even in the zone, but like, yeah, when I get on a tear, or whether, I should
You can go there.
Myself. Okay, great. Wonderful.
All right. So first question is, tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Okay. So I guess I'll start kind of chronologically. So I was born in a city called Kazan in Russia, which is actually a pretty big city. Again, it's funny whenever I talk to Americans and they're like, where are you from? And I'm like, Russia. And they're like, where in Russia? And I'm like, do you really want to play this game? You've never heard of it. Nobody's ever heard of it. Like, anyway, but then I tell them and usually they've never heard of it. But actually, it's like a big deal. Like my father still lives there and he never moved to the US. He has a green card, but and they hosted like a bunch of games of the World Cup. So it's actually like a really big, prominent city. The city's like 1,000 years old. It has like this crazy, long, bloody history. Actually, that big, like colorful church that everyone knows in Moscow, like the one that's in all the photos, St. Basil's Cathedral, that church was built to commemorate the capture of my hometown by Ivan the Terrible in like 11 something. So it's a fun fact. But anyway, a little bit about my childhood. So, yeah, I was born in 1989 in the former Soviet Union. And then basically, I don't remember that too much of my childhood. My memories are kind of really like sparse and foggy while I still lived in USSR, Russia, whatever you want to call it. I mean, a lot of sitting at home. That was like normal. You just like, I don't know, like if sometimes I was supervised, sometimes not. Like that's kind of just like how it was in Russia. Like just like leave kids at home and like, I don't know. It was a lot of that. And so I remember like very young, I was like becoming very pensive and philosophical because if you're just like standing or sitting around at home alone, what do you do other than like think about like, like, wait, what is death? And like, what the fuck, like, what is life? Why are we, what is all this? Like, why do I have all this time to just brood? So yeah, I mean my mom, my dad, and me lived with my dad's parents actually near a dump. We lived like really close to a dump, and it was gross. Like sometimes you could smell it. It was just like gross. Oh, and there's also a story where my mom's father threw out my dad's entire PhD thesis to said dump.
Yeah. Was it already submitted?
No, it was not submitted. He never finished it. That was the end of his PhD in theoretical physics, my father. And he went in. I mean, now he has his business, so I want to say no harm done, but somehow I feel like harm fucking done. So, but that is a great characterization of my mom's side of the family. They're like always like trying to clean shit and like, anyway. But yeah, so I mean, we lived there. It was, I mean, it was a decent sized apartment for like Russia, I mean, it was tight to have my mom, my dad's parents, and their like very young child all in the same building or apartment, which I'm sure contributed to the fact that my parents divorced when I was 4 years old, which really affected me. I don't know, I was just having a conversation recently with somebody, and they were like, oh, well, it's probably better that, that it happened when you were that young than like when you were like 12, or, you know, when you had like more fully formed, and it would have like, and I like kind of agreed with that, but I also was like, I think it just affects you in a different way.
Yeah.
Because if you are that young to where you're like 4, you haven't even like crossed like the 7, 8 years old threshold, you're not really going to be consciously dealing with it because you're like not able to. You haven't had anything even resembling like, you know, a meaningful non-familial relationship, like a romantic relationship. You've never had, there's nothing that was in my orbit that could like give me a way of processing or thinking about that. So instead it just gets like loaded and stuffed down into, I think, the kid's subconscious. So yeah, I mean, anyway, so I don't know. I mean, that part's kind of hard to describe. I'm just trying to give you like the highlights, because it's like I remember kindergarten in Russia was a fucking traumatic experience. Apparently everyone has like Russian kindergarten stories. I'll give you a couple highlights from this. So highlights from Russian kindergarten. I was off in the corner one day waiting for my grandfather to pick me up, and there were these 2 kids fighting, and I was like, just like using my imagination. And there were these 2 kids, this like kind of like young, short, white Russian like gang leader, like up and coming, like this was kindergarten,
Up
but he
and
had like
coming.
that. He was like, oh, you're all gonna fucking dance to my tune and do what I say, right? So him and this other kid are fighting over a wooden block, and they're like pulling, and I'm like off, like
Thinking
ironically,
in the
probably
corner.
around 6 feet away, which in this case was not safe. And this one kid like rips it out, and it goes flying and cracks me in the forehead, and I start bleeding like profusely, and like I'm like crying, and like the teacher, this is like, anyway, the teacher runs off, and she whisks me away to the bathroom, and she's like, you have to pee on it. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And she was like, you have to pee on it to like disinfect it. And like, even as like a 5-year-old, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why? That just makes no sense. And she was like, why are you afraid to pee on it? And I was like, okay, you're crazy. So
Things
that
are
was
escalating.
yeah. And then another time Russia's just weird. Another time they had everyone in my kindergarten class, they said you have to bring in a stool sample. Why? Like, why? And then if you didn't, you had to shit in a matchbox, like there, like in class. And so you just had like a room full of fucking kindergartners sitting there trying to shit in a matchbox. Anyway, so those are like probably most of the memories that I have, because they're so absolute.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. I think your internet is down. I'm just gonna press pause real quick. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, cool.
I know my whole thing just crashed. I don't know if it's a Zoom issue or
I
anyway,
think it was
but I think you were
probably,
talking about shitting in matchboxes, so the
yeah,
computer was like,
right.
end.
Yeah, it was like, I cannot process,
Shut
does
up.
not compute. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of weird shit happened. Apparently that's like pretty common to have like really weird stories about Russian kindergarten.
Yeah, I mean, all I've heard, just, you know, I mean, I didn't live in Russia, but I've just heard that they're just intense with, like if you went to kindergarten or first, second, third grade, all the younger grades in Russia and in other countries compared to the US, that the kids just like learn a lot more in a shorter period of time, because they like subjects that like we're not introduced to until maybe like 4th grade, or things that like people were introduced to in like 1st and 2nd grade. They're like, I learned that years ago. I'm like, where did you learn that from?
Right. Totally. Well, yeah, that's definitely another piece of it too. But I think authoritarian and like hardcore for, yeah, same reason. But yeah, so I mean, as I was saying, I didn't know that we'd gotten cut off, so I just continued. Yeah, and then you know, my mom and dad split when I was 4. And I don't remember like a whole lot else. I just remember them being like, and now we're moving to the USA. And I was like, the fuck is that? Like, what? they're like, yeah, we're going to America. And it's kind of like this, like on the fly. I was like, America, like,
Hold on.
tell me about that. Like,
Okay, yeah, we switched. I don't know if it's my internet or not, but we'll see.
Mine seems totally fine.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, I mean, for childhood, so when you guys did move to the US, was it were your parents like looking to get away from something, or they just wanted to come to the US?
So I mean, the story I was told, first of all, it was just my mom's side. My dad stayed, so it was just my mom's side. They basically were like, we just wanted to move somewhere that wasn't Russia, so that I would like have more shit and like opportunities, because there really wasn't. Russia in the 90s was like it was kind of almost like the way that the US feels right now, where it's like everything is changing so fast, nothing is guaranteed, nobody knows what the fuck is going on. People are like trying to, you know, grab like quick cash, and like, you know, everything's being restructured. That's what Russia was like in the 90s, because the USSR had just collapsed. And like the way my dad explained it to me one time was he was like, you guys can't really understand what it was like to grow up and try to like make it and succeed and like, you know, I don't know, make shit work during that period. He's like, imagine if everyone in Washington, D.C. was like, actually, guys, we give up. Who wants all this shit? Now you guys figure out a better system. We're done. We're leaving. And everyone just like walked out, and all the control systems and all the laws and all the like wealth, everything was just open for like restructuring. And so like the first people that were like, oh, I have an idea, and like wanted to essentially, you know, they had an idea for like how to make themselves exorbitantly wealthy and like be an oligarch who basically like ran that society. Like now those people are exorbitantly wealthy oligarchs who like have like a steel empire or like a precious metal. There's like a lot of them. There's a lot of billionaires in Russia. So that's kind of like what happened. And I don't know, my family was kind of like, I don't want to get involved in this craziness. And we just kind of came here, which in the 90s, America was like, seemed like the place to be. Now it's like, I don't know what happened, but so yeah, I moved here. That's like really where my memories kind of start. I learned English really, really fast. Like, I mean, a couple months, I would say, and I was
When you
speaking
moved?
it. Yeah, I mean, the first grade is like, you know, the first year that I started here. I remember being incredibly disappointed by first grade. Like, I was so upset because I thought they would like, you know, I thought we would be doing like literature, you know, and like real shit. Like I thought by the end of first grade, I'd be able to like, you know, assemble an engine, maybe like, you know, come up with like a concept or like a blueprint for like a spacecraft, like some cool shit. And instead they're like, oh, here's your crayons, color
Here's
in the
the
book.
alphabet.
And like, yeah. And like, you know, the big red fox, you know, jumped over the lazy brown dog. And I'm just like, this is nuts. You guys have issues. Anyway. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. We moved in. We didn't move into this house right away. We moved around. I moved around a lot when I was younger, like in the U.S., like first, second, and third grade, and fourth grade. So I did first, second, and third grade in Richfield Park in New Jersey. Then for fourth grade, I went to live with my grandparents in Fort Lee. That was like the worst year of my life because I like had to be away from my mom, and like it was just fucking crazy. And like everyone in Fort Lee, they had kind of like a cultural clique. I won't say anything else about that, but I was not in it. I had a bowl cut. It was excruciating year. It was like just torturous. Oh. And then for fifth grade, I came to Fairlawn and stayed until high school graduation. So that was tough moving around a lot, you know, especially when you're younger. It's kind of like you don't have your tribe.
Give me 1 minute. Hold on.
Okay, hold on. You want to go inside, Pop?
All right. So my next question is, I know that you're an older brother. What's the difference in age to your sibling?
So, well, I have two technically half siblings, but yeah, my difference in age with my brother is 11 years, and my sister, my sister is 14 years younger than me. So I'm 31, she is 15, which is fucking bizarre.
Yeah. Are you guys close, or I mean, as close as you can be, I guess, with that big of an age gap?
I mean, I'm super close with my brother. I just think, like, of the people in my family, he and I are pretty similar. I don't know, you know, how much, whether that's like an artifact of me having been such a big influence on him when he was growing up. Because at 11, like, I was more or less a fully formed consciousness, definitely. And then he came into the world, and I was like, whoa, like, I never expected to have any sibling. You know what I mean? I always wanted an older brother because, like, I was trying to figure my shit out, you know, moving to a different country and then moving around and, like, you know, I don't know, trying to fit into this other, like, American culture and stuff. And so I was like, when am I going to get an older brother? And then, like, out pops a younger brother. And I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this?
This isn't what I wanted.
You can't take it back.
No.
So no, but I mean, yeah, so I definitely, like, doted on him, and, like, you know, like, he like credits me with his, like, he's an engineer now at Rutgers, if that ever is a thing again, you know, college.
Yeah.
So he yeah, he, like, frequently is, like, you know, says that he remembers me, like, sitting and reading with him. Like, we have this, like, big, like, encyclopedia, like, science encyclopedia in our bookshelf in our room, and, like, he would, you know, remember me, like, showing him stuff and, like, going over stuff, and he says that was, like, a big influence on him, like, being interested in science and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, I mean, we're definitely really close for how big our age difference is. Again, sorry, coming full circle, I think it's because of all the people in our family, we sort of have, like, the closest, like, resemblance personality wise, you know, and, like, we feel that kind of kinship. And also, we can say what we really feel to each other without really getting judgy. And, like, even if, like, one of us gets upset, we have, like, you know, that's always good to have kind of like even if you have, like, a short fuse with someone, if you also have, like, a short refractory period of, like, oh, I'm so mad at you, and then your normal is being like, actually, there's, like, not really a point in getting mad at this person. Like, they're just telling me how they felt, and if I got upset, like, I don't know, sometimes that happens in life, so you just kind of get over it. So yeah, I mean, and I'm definitely getting closer with my sister, but I mean, dude, 15-year-old girls are not easy. Like, they're not.
No. I mean,
They're
I wouldn't want to be 15 again, so
like,
especially now.
Snapchat and TikTok, and I'm just like, you make me literally want to, like, go live in an artist commune under a rock, like, just for good measure, to be insulated from this. But no, she's wonderful when she's not, like, immersed in this, like, big data, big tech, like, brand name app world that, like, their generation is literally just marinating in.
Yeah.
So
how do you, I mean, you kind of touched on it, obviously, because you came from Russia, but do you connect with your Russian heritage now? Like, do you speak Russian at home? Do you guys do any of the traditions or holidays, or is it kind of pretty Americanized now?
I would say a blend, like, a little of both. I mean, we definitely speak Russian at home when it's not just, like, me, my brother, and sister. Like, we only speak, I don't know, unless we're, like, trying to be funny or, like, quoting somebody, we won't speak Russian to each other, because we're, like, you know, we want to be American. Whereas, like, the older generation doesn't really give a shit, and, like, they just do what's easier for them. So they'll speak Russian amongst themselves. But unless my mom is really, really pissed, then she speaks English. She's, like, really mad and she wants to single you out and just, like, make you feel that fear. She'll be like, we spoke about this earlier, and, like, she just, like, will, like, come down and, like, this
all enunciated and whatnot.
yeah, like, suddenly her English is, like, pristine. Perfect. And she's like your manager pulling you, you know, into the back room. But yeah, I mean, holidays we do. I don't know. Well, we used to do New Year's back when you can have guests over. We would. I don't know. I mean, we're Jewish, but like not that fucking
Not
Jewish.
really.
Really, it's kind of like now recently we've like, I don't know. I think there is something to that. Like, I wish we had like more of like, what in God's name? There's like a squirrel up there. There's nothing but interruptions today.
I know.
Yeah, there's been more of a push, they've been like, oh, let's like do this and let's celebrate this holiday and let's light candles. I used to be a lot more against it, to be honest, because I was like, we never did this before, like why all of a sudden,
Why
like
now?
what, this just becomes significant now, like, oh, by the way, you're Jewish, like, here, put this on. But I get it. I mean, also, as people get older, they want to have a connection to something, so who am I to like knock that?
Yeah. You do what feels good, what feels like natural, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, people like that my mom always says, like, it's the connection to the community. So, like, I get that. I won't knock that, So, in high school, real quick, so, like, drinking isn't really, like, a big deal in Russian culture, like, at all. So, I never really, that, like, side of it, like, the whole, like, oh, some people overindulge in alcohol and, like, can have a problem, and, like, alcoholism, like, that never quite, like, became a thing for me, because I just was like, I think a part of the appeal of drugs is like that it's taboo and like it's not allowed and like, you're not supposed to, and like it's hard to get or whatever. That whole like cluster, that seems to be really effective kind of pressure on human behavior and human consciousness to be like, oh, like maybe I want to do this, like it's taboo, it's not allowed, like people tend to chase that a little bit more. Whereas if it's like nobody really gives a fuck if you're doing it and like it's not a big deal, that was with me with alcohol. Like we were, I don't know, we would like take shots at the table, and I mean it's pretty typical for European culture. It's kind of like,
I was gonna say European in general.
Just like
it's
drink
like wine when they're like 5.
Don't be stupid, So I mean, we like I remember when I was like 12 or 13, like New Year's or family functions, like I would like whatever drink a little bit, and like, well, they would give us shots. They didn't really give us wine. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was kind of interesting that in that culture you're like trusted to make your own decisions with regard to that. So I don't know. Whereas drugs was a different story for me. So I remember when we first started, smoking weed, and the interesting thing was I would never have sought this out on my own, like ever. I just wasn't that kind of person. I was very like, just, I don't want to say goody two shoes, but like a little bit at that age. Like I was like, anything that was like taboo or like, more of like an adult subject or stuff like that. Like I had to be like low key dragged kicking and screaming into that territory, because I just would never have gone there. Like I wasn't that type of person. I was very like, I don't know how to put it, but yeah, I feel like you know what I mean. So I mean, initially we were smoking like once every month, maybe, you know what I mean? Like it was like when you're like 14, 15. And then, I mean, I definitely enjoyed it a lot. And then it kind of gradually got more frequent. I mean, it never seemed like an issue. I was doing fine in high school. I mean, fine, like I was just coasting through. It's not like I really did much or like studied. I mean, I'm sure I like did whatever work I had to do, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like super disruptive to my performance in school. It didn't seem. So then, I mean, for high school, that's pretty much, it was just like accelerating frequency of, but yeah, long story short, it was like, gradually I went from, and it was never like, I was never the one buying the weed ever. It was always like part of like this like friend group ritual, right? And I mean, that was kind of par for the course when I was in high school. That was the way I got into a lot of stuff, was like through friends and just,
I was gonna say, because that was how I even tried it, was like you and other people that shall not be named were hanging out, and you guys were
right.
like, hey, we're not going to charge you, it's just here. And I'm like,
right.
Okay.
Right, and it doesn't really feel like peer pressure at the time. It's just kind of,
No.
oh, this is what's going on, and like I get to do it and have this experience. And anyway, so that happened, and I mean, there was, obviously, I'm sure you're aware because you were part of the same orbit. There was definitely some drinking that went on when we were in high school. I won't deny that. But for me, and I would never drink alone. And I think in high school, I didn't really smoke weed alone either, like ever, that I really recall. It was always just with people. So, and I think just, this is my personal philosophy. I think any substance really will only like start to get pathological if you kind of like split off and are like, oh, okay, now I'm going to like do this by myself, just by my lonesome, and like indulge in this. So I don't know. Weird. Sorry, my charging light is like red for some reason. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, other than that, in high school, I didn't really do too many drugs. I experimented a little bit. There was some like over-the-counter stuff that same could like take cold medicine when we didn't have a cold because we liked the way that it made us feel.
Before the people drinking Clorox and all that stuff.
Well, not Clorox, but that's crazy. No, not Tide.
Tide Pods. We were before that.
This was years before that. We were doing it before it was cool.
Before it was cool.
And it was Downy. No, so anyway, what do you call it? No, we yeah, I mean, I don't know. Then there was like some, a couple, I would say, of instances of like prescription, like we got like Ambien, like I somewhere procured some Ambien and like, did that. And I actually built up a wicked tolerance to that. Cause like if a normal person takes Ambien, they literally go into amnesia and like don't know what they're doing within like 20 minutes. But if you're a crazy person and you start, building up a tolerance to this before you're even in college, you like just can navigate this like weird hallucinogenic, like sleep medication terrain and like remember what's going on. So I had a couple experiences like that where my friends were literally like walking through a dream state, like in our town at night. And I had to like corral them because like I was the only person that was like
somewhat sane person,
conscious enough to be like, we're on a street at night. Like, we might, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know, but fast forward a little bit, then I got to college. I had some really negative relationship-oriented experiences where I was shown how kind of like callous and not careful people can be with each other and with each other's emotions, and that really affected me. And I was on the honors floor at TCNJ, but we had this one guy living there who was nicknamed Shady Dave. That's what everyone called him.
Dave.
Dave. He's actually a sweetheart, and he's also, I think, clean. Like he quit doing drugs years ago, actually. Before
Gotta get a new nickname.
And he lived on our floor, and I mean, with the name like Shady Dave, you know what you're gonna get if you go hang out with him. So when I had this experience with someone, it was really fucked up. It was this guy, and he also lived on my floor, and it led to a lot of awkwardness, and he kind of like really ghosted me, and I felt really like used, and it was just, it just sucked. And I remember like I couldn't really deal with it, and so I like basically promptly like traipsed off to Shady Dave's room and was like, Dave, I'm ready. Like before that, I was like, didn't really like do drugs. Like I would smoke weed like every now and again, but like I was like, oh, I'm in college. This was my freshman year. I turned over a new leaf. Like, you know what I mean? Like I want to focus on school.
Yeah.
And just like try to do well. And and then I got my feelings hurt, and I immediately was like, fuck that, fuck everything. And so I like basically showed up in his room, and I was like, all right, let's do it, I'm ready. And he was like, do what? Ready for what? And I was like, you have Adderall, right? And like this wasn't even like to study, it was just like, now I'm going to give myself permission to do bad things because bad things happen to me. Like really like didn't make much sense. And he was like, yeah, I have Adderall. And I was like, all right. And like in my mind, it was like, I have to act out some kind of like act that like I never would have done before because I would have been off limits because of how, I don't
Because
know,
you weren't
roughly
you.
I've been treated or whatever. Like it's, again, like it's not like it logically makes sense if you think about it, but at the time it's just like, you know, this like extreme expression of your spirit. So yeah, so I proceeded to like, you know, snort this Adderall, and, you know, like it wasn't like that great, but at the time I was like, yeah, I'm breaking the
I
rules.
did it.
And yeah, and I mean, again, I think with behaviors like that, it's mainly just, it's like raising the threshold of what you consider to be like taboo, or like, and it does, it gradually kind of like goes up. And you know, you go from like, when I was younger, like really young, like cursing was like so taboo that like I could never even think about it. Like all that was like the fun activity in our group of friends was trying to get me to like drop the F word. Like it took years, believe it or not. I know now I'm where I am. It took years for them to be able to like get me to say the F word, because I just like, I was very averse to all these like dirty behaviors that I didn't see the need for when I was younger, because I was like this like pure little being. And it was very similar with drugs, because I was trying to get the glare to go away. Because I basically, like, as time went on, I started to become desensitized to like what I had already done. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, it's like your body, scientifically, not to get like scientific, but there's,
Get scientific.
you
Yeah,
get, your body gets used to, your mind gets used to things you've
Yeah.
already done. And if you don't change things up, you
And
know,
I-
you're like, I'm bored, or I want more, I need to do something else. And I feel like
it
it's
becomes your
almost
new
like
normal.
the new normal, and it's like a false sense. It's almost like you're reaching, not so much now, like in your life, my life, but you know, even now when you go to parties and you're talking to like people that you knew a long time ago, or people that you just meet, and they're all reminiscing about the good old days when they're like, I used to be able to have like 10 shots of vodka, and it's like they're bragging about it. It's like that,
Yeah.
it's still there, like not necessarily in their actions anymore, but they're still, it's still like this thing that you think is cool, like, yeah, I snorted that, it was so cool, and like I was still functioning. Like that's not cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think more than anything else, it's kind of like, I mean, and this is kind of my philosophy nowadays. Like, there's two different ways of doing drugs. There's doing it because you're open to a new experience, just like open, and you're like, I'm an adult making this decision. Hopefully, you've done your research, right? And I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to not necessarily ever do it again, but I'm hopefully going to learn from it. I'm going to take the experience at face value. I'm not going to project onto it that it was a good experience or a bad experience. And hopefully you're not doing it like alone, because doing drugs alone is kind of depressing for the most part, and just from my experience in my and then there's another kind where you do it because you don't feel good to begin with, and you are basically introducing this substance into your life already ahead of time, with the predetermined relationship that you're about to build with it, of it being a crutch and a guarantee to bring you back up and bring you back to baseline, so that you will feel better, aka eventually normal, and be able to go on more or less functional life and be like depressed or a wreck or whatever you were before that made you seek this thing out. And I mean, I know that that's kind of like an old-fashioned model, but like honestly, like that shit works and it makes sense. Like it's, and it doesn't just only have to do with drugs. Like if you do that with anything, with sex or with gambling or with like buying shit, if you're doing it because you feel empty inside,
Yeah.
and you're depressed, and you're actually just basically putting off or procrastinating developing some kind of healthy, or let's not even say healthy, but like other coping mechanism that's not straight up like toxic, you know, you know, I don't know, like I don't, maybe if I don't say healthy, like I'll give you an example, something that I really actually want to do more of right now, like painting. Painting is a, shall I say, healthy, self-limiting coping mechanism. Like if you paint too much, the worst thing that will happen is maybe you get hungry and like make some food. You know what I mean? Like I can't see that really getting out of hand. Whereas something like drugs, if you do too much, you're doing damage to your body and your mind. If you, you know, eat too much, then you're doing damage to your body and probably also your mind, because then you have like a food addiction, which we all have now that COVID is a thing. All I do is eat. And you know, or like, you know, sex. It's again, these things that when taken to excess, you're not really, you're like reverse coping. You know what I mean? You're like
Yeah.
basically creating problems that you'll have to deal with later. So anyway, so fast forward, I know I'm being really long-winded. This is the first interview I've ever done. So
I was like, I didn't expect anything less, because I know you you get on rants and go, and that's all good. I knew that.
yeah, so I mean, so then, you know, college went on. I tried, you know, I tried a lot. I've tried most stuff, really. I mean, like I said, I won't glorify or name it, but I've done a lot. And yeah, I mean, just gradually, I feel like it's pretty typical progression. I definitely, there was a moment when I lost my grandmother, that I definitely like kind of like snapped and started doing things I straight up like knew were really bad, just because I was like, the world is a cold, brutal place, and this is like the first death in my family I had to even try to deal with, and I just like could not deal with the fact that this person was just gone. She wasn't like sick. She just like had a stroke out of nowhere, and then the only time I saw her after that, she was like hooked up to all these machines, and like they were like 2 days maybe, like, and then this person's gonna be gone. Like that's it. Like she wasn't even, we couldn't like interact with her. She was like already gone. So that really fucked me up. And that was when I kind of tucked my arms and dove into the Olympic swimming pool that is opiates. Which again, like at my college, there was definitely like a little bit of a community of people doing that. And I was watching it, and it's not like I was stupid. Like I knew that these people had a pathological relationship with this substance. So let's just call it what it is. I mean, it was oxys at the time. That's what I'm talking about. This is like a well-worn path, like white kid with, you know, shitty emotional coping mechanisms ends up at college where people are doing oxys. And then
Yeah, I mean, there was an article years ago. I mean, we may have been in high school when it came out, but it was about like rich white kids in Bergen County, New Jersey, were doing drugs in the basements of their parents' mansions. And it was a front page spread of like mugshot after mugshot of like all these young adult or teenage kids that got busted. And it was just all within, I think it was only within like a certain month's time, and it was just because they were saying that's when it was such an epidemic, and it just kind of continued. But it's definitely true. I mean, you know, you sit around.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's the suburbs, and what do you call it? Yeah. So from there, I mean, I got into, after a while I left school because I wasn't really doing much there. You know, I kind of like had gradually my life had like restructured itself so that like the only thing that mattered was like, you know, getting more drugs. And which is a shitty place to be. And so then I ended up in a bad relationship. And again, as this story typically goes, you know, it's someone usually that introduces you to like this new, like whatever, higher plateau, or depending on your perspective, lower plateau of shit. And so I was introduced to heroin because it was cheaper. And yeah, and like from there things, I mean, I won't say immediately took off, because they really didn't, and I wasn't like thrilled with heroin the first time I did it. And I know oftentimes people have this like religious experience where they're like, I found God and like that's all I ever wanted. I mean, I already really liked oxys, and this was just like a fill-in. Yeah, I mean, so from there though, I would say it definitely like narrowed my life, because like once you start doing heroin regularly, like you're not able to be like a person the way that, or anyone who was able to be. And I did meet a couple of people in rehab who were like, I was working a full-time job, or like I was a nurse, and I'm like, dear God, like I would not want to be your patient. Like what? So yeah, I mean, you know, I was living in New Jersey at the time, in Wallington, with a person who's now my ex, and we were just really bad for each other. You know, like it was a toxic kind of pairing. I definitely think we like enabled each other's worst tendencies. Um, yeah. So, and then I don't know. I mean, it was a long journey. I would say most of my 20s, I pretty much like lost to, you know, the scourge of drug addiction. And yeah, and then a couple of years ago, I had to do 3 days in jail because of a charge in Pennsylvania that I don't want to talk about, because I'm just glad to be done with it. And yeah, I basically, I don't know, coming back from there, I just like something like just changed, and I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then I remember I came to this house and I stayed the night here, and then the next morning I was sick, so I went out and I got high, even though like I kind of had made up my mind to quit. I just was sick, and that's what you do when you're sick. You try to, you know, get well. And I remember after I did it, I was sitting there in a bathroom in a Dunkin' Donuts that locks on Route 21, just in case anyone's curious. Popular destination for that, because they have a bathroom that locks. And I was sitting there, and I had just done this heroin, and I remember I actually said out loud, despite the fact that I was alone. It was just like one of those moments where like I had to like make it real. And I remember being like, wow, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like I said it to nobody other than myself in particular. And then yeah, and then I just like kind of changed gears, and I like made some phone calls. You know, had my family help me out, drop me off up in Connecticut where I had insurance at the time. And yeah, just like started that journey. And then, you know, now it's like kind of weird. Like now I mean, I have other problems, like, you know, there's a global pandemic, like I'm depressed. I have an injury that I'm recovering from right now from this last job that I worked. But like my problems are very different from the ones that I had that I thought I would literally be stuck with forever. You know, like now I don't have any of those problems, and it's just crazy. And it's honestly, I don't know, to anybody who watches this, or just anybody who feels trapped and like limited, and like your life circumstances suck and they're never going to change. Honestly, if you put in the work and the effort and just the sheer will to try to do what you can, even if you feel like nothing is possible, you will be absolutely fucking blown away by how much your life can change in 1 year, 2 years. It's crazy. It's honestly crazy.
Yeah, I always laugh because, you know, you have like all this social media, like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, whatever you use, and they all have those modes where it's like time hop, or like this time last year, or like this time like 7 years ago. And it's like, I didn't forget any of that stuff, but like you look at pictures or like stupid posts, and you're just like, that feels like so much more like so long ago, and it really wasn't.
Especially the ones from like 2 or 3 years ago, I think, from now, because in the last 7 months so much has changed for everybody.
So much has changed. Yeah, everyone's normal has changed right now.
I think this is the first time that I like have lived through, at least, that we've had really like a collective trauma. That's what this is. It's a collective trauma that's been imposed on everybody. So
yeah, and it's interesting. It is, and it will continue to be, to see how like different people are affected by it, and how, you know, what comes about government-wise with it, which who knows, I have no faith in. But
you do not want me to even open my mouth on that subject, because
we'll get to it later.
Close.
But I mean, it's just, you know, things that are in our control. So like aside from that, because policies are, you know, not in my control, and you know, unemployment stuff's not in my control, but just people's everyday lives, how they're coping, because I feel like no one was ever really taught how to cope, unless your family taught you, but it wasn't something you learned in school, which I think is going to definitely change now.
Hopefully a lot of that shit's reformulated.
But yeah, no, it's definitely interesting because everyone's going through crap right now. Now that you were clean, I know that you had said, I'm getting back to basics, so to speak, getting back into things that bring you joy, like doing artwork. Many musicians and artists claim that being on drugs provides them with more creativity. How do you feel about that?
That's a really good question.
I speak, who comes to mind first, and I love her, is Lady Gaga, but she did a bunch of documentary things, and she was like, I'm high right now. Like, she was so blunt about it, but she said, I'm not promoting it, I'm just saying, like, I am, and I get a lot of stuff from it.
So that is a really good question. That's definitely the best question you've asked me so far, the most interesting. So, I mean, I'll put it this way. There are, just like, there are different ways to do drugs. There are different things that you can use or attempt to use drugs for. And I think that there's different, there are different ways of, and I'm being general, music, art, even poetry. There are different ways and modalities that you can like go into in making art, right? So just like there are different styles of art, right? Like, let's just say like poetry, right? There's like rhyming couplets. Like if you're writing like a pop song and you want things to rhyme, it's going to be like whatever, right? And it's kind of basic. Then there's like slam poetry, which is all about the feeling. And then there's like, like romantic poetry. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways of expressing yourself with words. And it's the same with visual art. And I think any medium that you have, so like with visual art, which is, I would say, the medium I'm most experienced with, certainly over my lifespan, you can attempt, for example, like if I want to be really good with my technical ability, and like if I want to draw my hand, right? Or if I want to draw you and sketch you, I would want to be sober, because I'm trying to basically be fully hooked into what my actual perceptual senses are sending my brain. I don't want to mess with that, right? And I find, like, with something like drawing from life, you don't really need what people think of as creativity, because creativity is like your brain being like, kind of boring what I'm getting from my senses. Like, actually, I'm going to make a representation of this, or like this image or this symbol or this other thing from my inner world. So I think, just to actually get on like board and answer your question in a similar phrasing, I think that being in an altered state can be very useful if you want to just go into your inner world and bring things out that aren't necessarily like, look at how realistically I can paint this still life, or like this house, or whatever, this landscape, but instead be like, check this out. I went into my like inner spirit realm and I brought this out for you. This is from inside me. It's not meant to be representation. Fucking hate that. All artists hate that, by the way. When people are like, what is it supposed to be? And it's like, it's supposed to be the nail in the coffin of me ever wanting to make art again, because you just said that. Thank you. Like, it's a success. But no, and I mean, I definitely, so throughout my life, I've learned that sometimes you kind of, you give up. Like, I feel that I've given up, and this could be me being fatalistic, I don't know, my potential to be more of like a classical, traditional, like realism focused artist, because if you do a lot of drugs, like, you kind of just like slide away from that direction. I think definitely if you're a musician, that's like less costly, because nobody really wants to hear like the modern version of Mozart's, sonata. Like, they want to hear new music. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like my philosophy. I mean, there's no question that when you go to a certain altered state of consciousness, you can make some really interesting art. I mean, in my mind, there's no question. If you look at any of the psychedelic art that's come out, Alex Gray,
That's great. Yeah.
you know, like, I mean, I follow him on Instagram. Like, there's so much, you know, like Chris Dyer. There's a lot of, you know, but I think it's kind of like, do I think you should do opiates and make art? No, don't do that. Literally, when I did that, I went from making art to not even being able to do it in like a couple months, because it just actually kills your spirit, both physically and like mentally. Do I think you should do psychedelics and make art? I'm not endorsing psychedelics, but fucking absolutely. If you're gonna do psychedelics and do anything, make art. I have to kind of bring this full circle. The thing that I've struggled with most recently is basically quitting smoke, like my relationship with marijuana and cannabis, because all through high school, all through college, all through making all of like the art that now like people look at, that's like hanging up in my house and like, this is amazing, so detailed, like how did you have the patience for this? And literally the answer is just, I was stoned and in the zone for like years. And then as you change as a person and your relationship to stuff like that changes, and also like the stuff you put in your body changes, like it's pretty frequently that people who develop an extensive experience with opiates and then like try to quit opiates, pot never is really the same after that, because it makes everything heightened and basically like kind of gives you a panic attack. So it's different for me now. And so lately, like making art, it's been a real struggle, because I've had to confront the fact that like, you might just have to get used to like doing this differently and like sober, like not in the way that you used to. And like, yeah, it's always, it's like the path of least resistance of like, I can just get stoned. And then, you know, my internal critic, I think that's really the main thing. It silences your internal critic, because you feel more open. And open and creative are kind of synonyms in our society. You know, it's kind of like, oh, this is cool. And instead of questioning how good it is and judging yourself on what you've created before you're even done, you just kind of let it happen and it takes shape. And so that's a really complicated question, but I feel like I spoke to some of the points of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's kind of interesting how you're like now trying to get back into doing your art, and like you said, you're doing it sober, so it's definitely different. And I'm sure like your attention span with it, like your frustrations with it, like you're like, it's not coming out like I want it to come out. It's kind of like, you know, the theme of like the world right now. It's like everyone's like adapting, or like trying to adapt to change things around. So, you know, just like working from home or doing things virtually, and
just missing the way
versus how it was before.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't go back.
Right. Well, or alternately, you can try to go back, but you're actually probably going to end up hurting yourself more by like,
resisting,
you know, clinging to it, because it like, this is what happens. This is how the world works. Sometimes things irrevocably change, and you know, the reason everything has changed to a new way of being is because the old way of being doesn't work anymore, and it's not, you know, feasible anymore. So I mean, whether that's, you know, for me on a personal level with me wanting to, you know, smoke a little bit of weed and then do art that I can't do anymore because of my state of mind and my physical, you know, like my body and whatever, or if it's on a global scale of, you know, people want to go to a music festival and, you know, they're told that they can't. It's, you know, it's adapting to, you know, the new way, and making decisions of how much you want to fight against that. And
yeah,
you know,
like how you're going to let it affect you.
Right. But I'm saying, right, because again, when there becomes a new normal, you can either like fight against it with all of your energy and be like, no, I refuse to accept this. Like, I loved doing that the old way, and I'm just going to hopelessly, you know what I mean? Like stubbornly cling to that and literally fight to get that back until my last breath. Like, you can do that. It's a free will universe. You can do that. Or you can say, yes, everyone says I should be terrified of this virus. So whatever I'm told, whatever the government says, like vaccine, like, sure, I'll just like literally like lay with my head down on my bed and put my butt up in the air, and you can shoot whatever vaccine you develop out and just hit me in the butt with it with a dart. and I will just accept it because I'm so scared and the new normal is so terrifying that whatever the powers that be decide, right? So there's two ways of going about it. Do I think either of those extremes is like smart? No. I think maybe a happy medium where it's like figure out who has your best interest at heart and also use your voice. Like all the people that are, sorry, I won't even say that. I don't want to get on that.
We can get onto it later. It's coming.
Yeah.
Let it brew.
Totally. It's brewing.
It's brewing. Sticking with art, what mediums do you currently work with?
Let's see. Good old procrastination on canvas. No, but actually, well, so lately, the last piece that I really did was graphite. I actually have a time lapse of it on Instagram. It actually came out really well. But my thing now is it's really hard. Well, I shouldn't even say that. It's really hard for me to make art by myself. I don't know how much that's true and how much it's like a crutch. I mean, I think everyone's just also really lonely right now. Like I had this problem before COVID, but
yeah,
now it's like so accentuated because I'm stuck in my mother's house. Like you know,
you're focusing on all the crap.
It's just like, I think for me, it's easier to be present physically with other people around because I feel like I'm already devoting a little bit of my energy and my consciousness to the fact that like these people came here to see you in real life and spend time with you. So don't spend all your time doing useless shit, wasting your time browsing the internet just emptily, which I think we're all so susceptible to now. And this is a huge point. And so, okay, but to answer your question before I go off again, what mediums? I mean, the mediums that I really enjoy, I love pen and ink. That's like my classic. Like if you go on my page, you'll see like a lot of that. Pen and ink. I used to do watercolor a lot. I'm trying to get into oil paint, but god damn, is oil paint a commitment?
It tries your patience. I've tried it, and I'm like.
Well, one of the things that oil paint is like an interesting teacher because I've discovered it's almost like not so much a new medium to learn, but like it's a way to unlearn a lot of the other stuff.
It's like, total unlearning if you come from anything but oil.
If you're used to like being able to have things dry quickly, it's just, that's not, but it's interesting. I think for me, because as a personality, I am so fixated on freedom and ability to choose. I mean, I can't choose like what gender I want to go after. I can't choose what I want to do for a living. And I think there's a wisdom to that, but I think it also speaks to, I think it speaks to like intuition because I'm kind of glad I didn't put down roots and like build a life for myself before COVID happened because that would have all gotten basically knocked down and come crashing down. So now I'm like, yo, good call being just like a, procrastinating, like indecisive mess because it actually served you a little bit. I've had that thought. I'm not kidding. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that being willing to not be good at stuff in life for me and new mediums and like, really pushing the envelope with oil paint, I think is really important for me because that's just like a journey that I've been on lately where I've come to terms with the fact that like, I just need to let go of this like very judgy, like kind of like competitive, but mostly like self-evaluative function that I think like it's not worth doing something until I'm like
perfect.
Great at it and it's always going to come out perfect and like like it's like a waste of time if I'm going to end up creating something that's not this like high quality. And I think what I've come to realize is that especially in art, it's kind of like really subjective what's high quality. It's like the most subjective thing in the world because some people will look at a child's scribble and if you don't tell them a child did it, or sometimes even if you do tell them a child did it, they'll be like, this is the most groundbreaking abstract art ever. And it's like yeah, to you, maybe it is. And like, I'm not invalidating that, you know, whereas someone else is like, oh, the way that you've rendered the feathers on this sparrow is worthy of the Hermitage. You know what I mean? It's like, nobody's right. And so what I've discovered, and also when I look at art, it's not like the most realistic thing is the best. Like, that's not true. There's stylistic and, you know, all kinds of choices to be factored in. And so I don't know, I've just like learned to kind of like take it a little easy on myself. And like, sometimes if I'm sketching, you know what I mean? Like, if I haven't done art in months and I want to start with a stick figure, which I would never do and have never done, I've never lost it to that degree, just put that out there,
Never been that low.
then that's okay. And that would be okay, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd love pen and ink. I love carvings. I have a lot of actually stuff to do that with, but yeah, I mean, I just need to get used to spending a lot of time doing it without the crutch and the easy comfort zone of like being stoned and being like, well, it doesn't matter how much time is going by. And like, I'm just gonna like, you know, vibe.
Yeah.
And that's tough. And I don't know, maybe I just need to smoke like a small amount of weed. I don't know.
I haven't all the clocks.
Right, exactly. Yes.
But
Turn off the Wi-Fi.
I know that you also are interested in photography, whether it just be with your phone or with a real camera. Is there a subject that you like to take pictures of more, like people or landscapes or flowers, whatever?
Sure. Well, to go back to your earlier question, that's actually really the medium that I've been using the most, because I am such a control freak and I am such a perfectionist that when I can just have a camera and like, you know, I mean, nature is already perfect. And like the fact that I get to choose a composition and like choose a focal point, and it's just that like perfectionistic streak in me finds like its ideal outlet, because all you really have to do, this isn't quite true, but is press the button and click the shutter. You have to set everything up. You have to set the exposure. You have to set the aperture. You have to, you know, set the fucking color settings and everything. And there's a lot that goes into it, but kind of tricks you, instead of like wasting a ton of time making a piece of fine art that you then might be dissatisfied with, you're just taking a photo that you can edit later. And like, it's a lot of detail goes into it, because to answer your question, I definitely like landscapes and nature probably most of all, because it's such a visual feast. And despite what I would have thought before I actually went into photography, there's actually like a lot of like room. Like, I know there's a lot of people that photograph nature, but there's also a lot of nature. So it's not like it's, I don't know, overdone. Like, I am always willing to look at more beautiful shots of nature. So, I mean, I do really like, I wish actually, if people needed photography done that was like headshots, or I would love to do that, because I think I really excel at that too. I mean, Katya has had me do like a lot of photos for her, and they've come out fucking stunning. Like, we did this one photo shoot, excuse me, in the botanical garden that was like crazy. Like, that was like some Renaissance painting shit, how those photos turned out. It was like the light was like perfect, and like all these flowers. And so yeah, I mean, I definitely, those would be my two like main, you know, just like people and nature, you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you ever make art your career, or is it something that you would want to always keep separate?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
Or is it kind of like could be both for the right reasons or the right circumstances?
I think that's a really good question. I wasn't prepared for that.
So I'll give you a second to think. Like, for me, I never took any formal classes. You know, I took an oil painting class through a community school thing, and it was for like a few weeks, and I like yelled at the teacher like, I'm better with acrylic. Like, I like broke down. But you know, and that wasn't like a very serious thing, and that was you know, just not long ago. And I've taken like, I took a cartooning thing again through a community school thing years ago, and it was nothing about like the technique. It was like, do this, copy me, and I'm really good at like copying, because I've taught at like those BYOB painting places, because essentially if you're an instructor at any of those places, it says, this is the painting we're teaching, copy it and teach them how to copy it. So it is dumbed down, it's very step by step. But I don't think I would ever want to make art like my bread and butter, just because I want to enjoy it, what I do, and not be judged,
Totally.
not being, like, we need this.
Well, I think, I don't know, for what I have seen of it, I think art kind of, for me, and it's interesting because this question is very timely because I'm kind of at this decision point right now in my life where, and I mean, what's happening now, in a sense, in that sense, is like, I don't want to say a blessing in disguise, but it is like a potent decision force where it's like, okay, let's say the fucking world is coming to an end and like actually your time is super valuable. And it's not like, oh, I'll worry about this when I'm 65 and I'm retired and I don't have to worry about making money. It's like the financial system is coming to a fiery collapse potentially. Yeah, like no, well, we're past a coin shortage. Dude, don't even. I mean, if you have time for that part of this interview, I will vent. But basically, it's kind of like what I've discovered is that if you're gonna be an artist, for me, it needs to be in order to communicate something specific. I don't know how else to put it. It's not really, for me, it's not worth making art your career if you're just like, I want to, and nothing against the people that do this, and I really enjoy a lot of their work. But for me, I need, and again, I'm literally in the process of making this decision right now. Like I'm there. I'm in this space of the question that you asked. So that's why, if this answer seems vague or imprecise, it's because I'm literally in the process of figuring out where I want to stand with regard to this issue. It's like now there's so much going on in the world and there's a lot of flux. I see a lot of artists like on Instagram and stuff, like basically really like diving deep and making their art like sending like a specific message, and like that resonates with me. That is so powerful. And I think that whatever medium I choose to follow, like whether it's even like photography, like I think photography is one of the best ways to do that and send a message, because I don't know, it takes so much less time to get a fully formed end product that's like really polished, so I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's just really just more than anything else, it's a decision on like, because I want to help people. Like that's like the main thing that moves me and drives me, is like I mean, I'm not particularly attached to like money or stuff. Like I have some money saved up right now, but I really don't have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of art supplies and like a camera. Like I spend money on stuff I can use to create, and then usually it sits around and I don't use it, which is really sad. But I don't have like a lot of clothes, or like I've only now started investing in like shit that actually is important to invest in, like pillows, like for your health, because I have neck problems. And like the things that move me is I just really like being able to like give people joy, and like help people and like give them something nice to fix their consciousness on, so that they can like, get a little bit of beauty in their life. So that's what really draws me to art. And right now I think the question is, to what extent is that the best, not the best, but like really like a gift that you can give to society, versus weighed against other ways that you can help society. You know what I mean? So like, is there something I can do potentially in healthcare? You know what I mean? Like whatever, like it's very open-ended, especially now that so much is changing so fast in the world. And I think that there's definitely a lot of like newly available real estate of like, who's got ideas on how to fix the world. You know what I mean? I think we were in Western society, we were in a much more closed-minded place before this. Like before this, it was kind of like, no, just go run the rat race and just make money and like just survive. Nobody wants to hear your bullshit ideas on how to change society. Like that definitely felt like the vibe. It was like just profit over everything. The people that run the world already run the world, and there's not really any room for decision makers. Whereas now I think a lot more decision makers are being listened to. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that's the best answer I can come up with to this question. Kind of like, I need to decide what I feel is the best balance between helping other people, which is what I want to do, but also taking care of and helping myself, whether that's material, whatever, supporting myself, and also like living my purpose and feeling fulfilled. At the moment, I want to go find some other cool people. You're welcome to come if you desire. I have a little bit of cash saved up. I want to get some land and go with like some people who preferably know what they're doing with like permaculture and like can actually grow food, because this would be a sad experiment if we were like, yeah, let's go grow food, and then we couldn't do it. Find like some artists, some musicians, and just like some, you know, like little bit of a village, and go and like wait out this insanity, and like, you know, because I mean, even if you believe that like vaccines will save us all, and like, you know, vaccines are absolutely necessary, like, guess what? If you find a group of healthy people and go like live away from all this craziness, then you won't fucking need the vaccine, will you? Because you're just going to be with your group of sane, like-minded people. Whether you want to bring guns or not, that's up to you. I don't know, hopefully not, but maybe yes, you know, if it gets bad enough in the world out here and like the roving bands of hungry people start to, I don't know, but honestly, that's like my current, that's where I'm at currently, because I can't say that. And I worked at Trader Joe's, which is a grocery store, so I saw what happened last year when, for the first time really ever, the US was like, wait, hold on, real issue? Like, what? I have to change my policy? No, I don't know. It, you know, like there's so many like phases of like, oh, it's fake. No, it's not fake. No, it's fake again. And it's like, I won't say where I stand on all of that, but the food supply chain was absolutely annihilated by this like most microscopic really disruption of like, oh wait, hold on, something changed about the world, something changed in America, like now I might have to buy more pasta or more canned food. Instantly all that shit was gone. Instantly, like by the end of the week, empty shelves. And we got, in the Northeast, we got no snow last year, this winter.
Sure.
So, and like, again, all deaths were attributed to COVID. So the flu like basically didn't exist. Again, won't talk about that agenda or why I believe that was done. But so let's think about this following winter. If we get a lot of snow, we're going to have flu, we're going to have COVID, we're going to have all these rules that are already in place and more severe, more intense rules that are going to be in place. You know, and I follow a lot of channels that have been talking about this honestly for years, and it's, people are very disconnected here in the New York City metro where we live, like, you know, fucking 5,000 feet above the ground in these like, you know, whatever apartments, and like it's both metaphorical and physical. Like our feet never touch the ground. We're very divorced from like, in order to eat food, you have to grow food in the ground, and like the weather has to cooperate, and people have to like plan. And so I feel a calling to get back in touch with that and get more involved in that process, because I feel like I don't want to be part of the people that are like having a cocktail party on Fifth Avenue in their penthouse, and then like, you know, midway they discover that like they have plenty of booze but they don't have any food, and you can't eat money. You know what I mean? Like I feel that that's coming. I do. I just
just to know that you're doing your part in a positive way,
it's
instead
like
of just like, instead of just going along.
It's like the Three Little Pigs thing, honestly. It's like this little piggy like built a house made of, and like he thought that he would be fine with a house built of straw, because he had never encountered anything that would make him think that that was a shitty idea, and he actually needed to prepare better. That was good enough, you know. And then you move up the ladder, and it's like, I mean, if the, you know, wolf was like the wolf from Terminator, then maybe even the brick house wouldn't have been good enough, and he should have like poured like a, you know, I don't know, solid concrete bunker. You know what I mean? Like it depends on circumstances, and our current circumstances have shown us that like, or shown me that like actually just saving up a whole bunch of money that you assume is always going to be worth what it's worth, and be able to like buy you security and stuff and food, that might actually not always be the case. It's not like it's been the case through all of human history. It's not like there's never been a famine. Like shit's happened. You know, and there's so much content that I'm not going into that I just don't want to overwhelm you. But I mean, I don't know. I can definitely send you some of those links to post under this. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I know. I know a lot of people, you know, have similar thoughts on it that you do. So that would be cool. I know that you were working at a grocery store, like you mentioned. How has that influenced your diet and how you see food?
It has ruined me. I honestly, I mean, I've always been very skinny, but now like I'm in danger of disappearing from my sheer like food snobbery. Like I just, it's almost like, I mean, it either almost is or is like pathological. Like it's ruined me because then like working there, I was like, all right, well, let me see, how much of this stuff is actually healthy. Like, everyone thinks like if it's from Trader Joe's, like that's as good as it gets
If it's
almost. You know
Trader
what I
Joe's, it's
mean?
healthy, even though half the stuff they sell is not healthy.
Half the stuff they sell is literally flour, sugar, or some combination of the two. Some of the products that they sell are like beyond good. Like if you've never tried the vegan kale cashew pesto, you might as well like jump off a cliff because that shit is the meaning of life. It is so good. I'm missing it. I haven't been to that store in a while. But basically, it's ruined me. I mean, even before then, I like I went through my phases where I wanted to like not eat meat, which is actually really hard for me because again, I like gain weight so slowly and I lose weight so quickly. So if I were to try to like literally not eat meat, and I kind of want to try right now, but I'm afraid. I'm literally afraid that it will be a danger to my health because people have different
They
metabolic and
react
caloric
differently.
demands, and like I have a very, very high caloric demand. It's also another reason I want to like get my food situation secure and possibly grow my own food because I just need a lot of food to function. I eat a lot. And I don't trust this frail, fragile food supply system to continue to deliver that in decent quality food because food
Yeah.
quality is plummeting. I mean, did you know they don't even have to label, like GMO shit doesn't have to be labeled. Like pretty much all produce that we eat that's not organic has a very good chance of being GMO. It's just normal now. I mean, I just saw something last night. The I won't even go into that. I don't want to get derailed. But basically, I mean, yeah, I'm very, very healthy eater, and it's very hard for me to find food that I am okay eating. But I've become quite the cook in quarantine. I like to
But
make.
that leads me to my next question is what is your favorite dish to make for breakfast? Or one of them, because I know you've been like cooking up a storm and like posting all your videos of like eggs
Yeah, I
frying in
do.
a
I do.
pan.
I do. I know. I mean, I do love me some eggs. They're easy, they're quick, they're versatile. Love versatility. I like oatmeal with fruit. Like just like I've like made some cool like concoctions with that. I make a mean French toast. I'm gonna make that now, to be honest. It's like a late breakfast.
Brunch time.
I've had brunch. I've had 2 cups of tea, so I'm like my migraine is. I feel like it's kind of gone. Sometimes I wake up early in the morning with a really bad headache, and I think the fact that like I actually am doing something with another person, even though it's virtual. You know what I mean? It's like engaging me a little bit. That's
Yeah.
always good to do, even though I'm sitting, so it's kind of killing my neck, but it's okay. But yeah, so I mean, I love for breakfast. I love anything, omelet. I love French toast. I love just like vegetables, sautéed vegetables is really good. I try not to eat meat like in the morning because it's like heavy, unnecessary sometimes. Yeah, or like just fruit. Sometimes I'll just do like fruit yogurt.
Anything that feels clean.
Yeah, light, not necessarily light. Clean. You're right. Clean. Let's go with that. Let's go with that one.
Feels clean. May not
Yeah.
be clean, feels clean. All right, so that is the end of my, somewhat late questions. And the last thing, which is what you've been kind of revving up for, I just wanted to lightly touch on the state of the world. Obviously, we're in the midst of a pandemic, an election year, and an overall state of unrest, protest, and uncertainty. I know that you are opinionated on all of this, and rightly so. Would you like to comment?
Opening the floodgates. I'll keep it very light. I think that what's happening right now, first of all, if you believe in coincidences, cool. Now might be a good time to re-examine that and what you believe is a coincidence. Because, I mean, life seems to be, if you believe in time, life seems to be a bunch of things happening in time all at the same time. So if you believe those things are unrelated, then you say they're a coincidence. If you believe they're related, then it's something else, right? What it is, whether is up to you, right? So I mean, what I think about this time is that one conspiracy that I think it is just straight up silly to question is the fact that there are forces at work right now that want us to argue, to be short-tempered, illogical, fight with each other, be divided, and waste all of our power that we have if we were to come together and unify and at least try our best to get on the same boat and actually listen to what each other is saying and let people speak and hear, because that's what now social media is creating, this echo chamber where, you're just excuse my expression, you're just a libtard who literally like reads the first headline at the top of like, MSNBC, and you're like, Trump is keeping a crocodile in his basement and like feeding children to it. And like, I mean, maybe that's true, but like do some digging. Don't like believe the top headline from MSNBC. Are you crazy? That's like if you were, I don't even know, like if you Stockholm syndrome and somebody was keeping you in their basement and then they opened the basement door and they were like, oh, hey, there's a storm rolling in, so I can't let you out today at all. And like, you're not getting fed. And you were like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like that doesn't make sense. If there's somebody who has total power over you and they control the media, like don't believe the first thing you hear from that media, because it doesn't take a lot of mental activity to see that that's in their best interest, is you buying the first like morsel of bullshit that comes flying your way. So in that sense, I really implore people to explore being open-minded. And yeah, a lot of things are being packaged and painted as conspiracy because it's in the interest of the people who those conspiracies are calling out to have people not look into it. I mean, it's not rocket science. And so I don't know, I think this is a unique opportunity for people on this planet to really hear each other out and explore all of the possibilities and all of the options and choices available to us, and decide what we really want to do, how we want to live our lives, what we want to stand for, whether we want to be just all for ourselves and accumulate as much, material crap, that we think is going to make us happy, and then just sit on that pile like Smog from The Hobbit, like the dragon in the mountain. Or if we want to, like, whether it's get back to basics or whatever, or, my brother's an engineer. I'm not going to tell him to go like grow food if he wants to be an engineer. Like, go be an engineer, come up with like new, innovative, timely ideas. We need them now more than ever. Like, I think everybody can do their part. And I think that I think we have so much power as a collective, and we just need to get clear on what we want to do and what role we want to play. And I mean, if it gets to a point where someone is able to convince me that like we need a vaccine for a virus, and that's the only way that we can continue, if there was a point that you could convince me of that, then maybe I would explore that possibility. But right now, we have so many options in our toolkit. And the people that want you to believe that we need a vaccine in order to move on are the same people who stand to make trillions upon trillions of fucking dollars from you accepting that that's the only way to move on. And they're holding our old way of life where we could do this interview in person and we could go sit on a bench in a park without, being like dressed like beekeepers and all this shit. Like, they're holding that way of life hostage and basically just waterboarding people with fear in all of these media outlets. And just basically, yeah, it's like, it's I mean, it's really, it's like psychological torture, but of everyone, all at the same time, using the internet and social media.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at. It's like, have you had enough yet? Have you had enough yet? Are you just going to do what I say? Are you going to take the vaccine? And in my case, the answer is no. Just murder me. I'm not taking the vaccine. Go fuck yourself. Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
I
know
get,
that was a lot.
I think that, well, it wasn't to the scale I was, I've experienced, so it's all good.
Thank you
But I
for
know like the
saving me.
vaccine, they're pumping so much money into all these like different drug companies, and some of the drug companies have no background in ever producing a vaccine for anything.
Not only
So it's kind of
that,
interesting that they're like pumping into so much into those companies, and if they don't come up with anything, they're still keeping all of that money, which is a little crazy. But I think it'll just be very interesting when a vaccine is out and it is somewhat trustworthy. I mean, people are still going to get sick. People get vaccines and still get sick with what they got the vaccine for. That happens all the time.
right, especially with the flu vaccine.
I had the, I guess it was the HPV vaccine or shot or whatever. That's 3 rounds of shots over like, I think like a months at a time. You go like every 2 months or something. I got that when I was younger. It came out. It was like new. It was on all TV commercials. Like all girls should get this. Like blah blah blah. If you're like 21 to like 30, you should get this shot.
In college, they marketed it super heavily.
And I got it. And right after I got it, there were all these like negative press things about it, and I was like, okay. So I don't think it'll be interesting to see like what they make mandatory. I've never gotten the flu shot ever. I've never gotten a flu shot ever. I get sick here and there throughout the year, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, don't get the flu shot. And the other thing is coronaviruses are one of the most rapidly mutating families of viruses that exist. So if
you get it for this one, but there'll be another one a month later.
There literally will definitely be another one a month later, just like there has been for all of human history, that we've had the common cold, much of which is caused by coronavirus. But the thing that last night I was reading something that talked about this. You really just draw this logic, which it's not, to its conclusion of like, okay, so they say that we need a vaccine to be safe from a virus that mutates so fast that even natural immunity can't keep up with it, right? And like you know what I mean? It's like, and you have to get the vaccine too, because otherwise I'm not protected. But if the vaccine worked and I was protected just by getting the vaccine, then why would I need to force everybody else to get the vaccine? Right. And it's like the flu is a much easier organism to create a vaccine for, and they can't even get that shit down.
Yeah. Well, there's a new strain out every year anyway. So it's like, oh, right. It might work for this, but it might not.
Exactly. And there's so many strains of flu. And I don't know. Basically, like, this is all the people that run the world who have so much money already that money is really no object to them. The only thing that they can accumulate more of is control. I mean, I could name a few: Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, let's just stop there. Because I mean, if you have doubts that Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos are evil, then there's just no, I'm sorry, not to be like judgy, but there's no hope for you. I mean, those people have so much power and money, they could literally like snap their fingers and just like make you fall apart at a molecular level if they really wanted to. They have enough money to make that happen somehow.
Thanos.
So yeah, they're right. The Thanoses of the world. And like, I mean, yeah, you could make a case for like Thanos is just like, trying to invest in public health, and just because he's, really powerful doesn't mean he's evil. But it's like, Bill Gates left Microsoft, I don't know how many years ago. Let's say, don't even hold me to that. I'm not exactly sure how many. But I know that since then, he has more than doubled his fortune. Okay? And we're talking like tens of billions of dollars doubled by investing in public health. And it's not like he's really investing in public health. Investing in public health, by my definition, would be teach people to grow food, do education outreach, make sure people have clean water. Like, is it possible that they're like slightly involved in some of that stuff? Maybe. I mean, I'm not knocking it. But what is the thing that they've invested in overwhelmingly? Vaccines. Because when you can force a government to accept a vaccine protocol, you have guaranteed income, especially when you've bought out all of the manufacturing pipelines for those. And that's what's happening. That's what a lot of this COVID is. It's just, you know, it's medical political correctness. It used to be, oh, you're not being politically correct, so you're not being sensitive to me or this person in my family or who I am obligated to care about, so I'm obligated to go to war with you in this argument. And people eventually were kind of like, so you're offended, so what? I'm not breaking any laws. Now you are breaking laws. Now it's medical political correctness. And if you so much as don't agree with this or you don't agree with this part of masks, then you're a murderer and you want to murder my grandma. So as they, you know, they're just, it's being pushed further and further and further, because the more fear people are under, the more shit you can get them to do, the more shit you can force them to do, because the threat level, the perceived threat level is higher, you know? And I mean, next it's going to be, I don't know, you know, because I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like the war on terror, people eventually kind of were like, this is fake. Like, I don't actually, at all but like the most silly Bible thumping, like sugar cookie, plain ass Americans, you know, who like don't question anything. Like those people maybe still believe the war on terror, but I feel like everyone else was like, this is kind of a joke. This is kind of just, you know what I mean? When Bush was president, it's like you rolled out the Patriot Act and said that there were terrorists, and we were like, okay, what? And then it's like, oh, you just wanted to spy on all Americans, and you got that right, and then you said you would give up that right, and you never give up that right, and you're still doing it. Now for coronavirus, it's like, well, everyone has to wear masks for a while, and everyone has to agree to take vaccines for a while, and then that's never going to end. When do people who have power give up power? Spoiler alert. Never. They never do.
Spoiler.
Anyway,
Well, thank you.
No,
it's all good. It's why we're talking. But thank you for being a part of the cafe and for sharing all your insights. And yeah, we'll see who watches and who starts conversations in regards to you, because I think that's everything that you've touched on is pretty interesting and affects a lot of people. So
yeah. Is this going to go on like your platform or on Insta too, or just your platform probably?
So the videos will be posted onto the YouTube channel that I have, and the links to that, but the video itself will be on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.